Guns domain.
What if the world's most powerful intelligence agency built rooms not to gather information, but to break the human mind? And what if the stories that leaked from those rooms were not myths, not exaggerations, but fragments of a reality far darker than anything the public was allowed to see? For decades, the CIA interrogation program existed in the shadows, protected by layers of secrecy, hidden behind sealed doors, private airstrips, unmarked buildings, and coded directives. Few people knew what truly happened inside these sites. Even fewer dared to question it. And for years, the world could only speculate. But once declassified files, leaked testimonies, and survivor accounts began to rise to the surface, a grim picture emerged. A picture showing techniques far more brutal, far more invasive, and far more psychologically destructive than the public, or even many government officials, had imagined. In the early 1990s, an investigation by the Baltimore Sun uncovered a previously classified CIA interrogation manual. The manual did not describe traditional questioning or simple psychological pressure. Instead, it outlined a detailed system of manipulating a detainee's environment, dismantling their sense of reality, and weakening their mind until resistance collapsed. It mentioned soundproof rooms with no windows. It described cells without toilets, where confusion and disorientation were used as weapons. The intended effect was not just discomfort. It was psychological dismantling. But that early revelation was only a glimpse. Before we continue, if you're really interested in these topics, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps us grow and lets us bring you more great stories, reviews, and hunting insights. The true scale of what the CIA built would not become known until years later. One of the most infamous black sites the agency operated was a secret prison near Kabul, Afghanistan. This facility held 20 concrete cells, all engineered with a single purpose: to break the human spirit. 16 of the cells forced detainees into one position for hours at a time. Their wrists and ankles shackled to rings embedded directly into the walls and floor. These positions were not chosen randomly. They were selected to inflict discomfort, restrict movement, and wear down the detainee physically and mentally. The remaining 4 cells served a different, more extreme purpose. They were designed specifically for sleep deprivation. Prisoners were chained with their hands suspended high above their heads, their feet barely touching the floor. Some detainees were left like this for days, others for even longer. In these positions, sleep was impossible, and sleep, as psychologists know, is one of the foundations of human stability. Without it, the mind breaks faster than the body. Inside this black site, there were no beds, no lights, no warmth. Darkness was constant. Cold air was constant. Noise, when used, was deafening and relentless. Detainees were given plastic buckets for bodily needs, though in many cases even that basic dignity was removed. In the sleep deprivation cells, prisoners were forced to wear diapers. When diapers ran out, guards improvised with duct tape. Other times, prisoners were left completely naked, chained in freezing temperatures with no protection. The consequences were predictable. One detainee died inside the facility. He was found half naked, chained to the cold concrete floor, his legs bound, his body temperature dangerously low. The cause of death was hypothermia. Nothing about his final moments suggested an accident. Everything about the environment suggested inevitability. Later, the psychologist who helped design these techniques described the facility as nasty but safe. Today, that phrase feels almost grotesque. Safe for who? Safe in what sense? And what definition of safety could possibly apply to a place where a man froze to death in chains? As more details emerged about the CIA program, the full list of interrogation methods shocked the world. Waterboarding created the immediate sensation of drowning. A detainee was strapped to a board at a downward angle, while water was poured over cloth covering the face. Panic set in instantly. The gag reflex activated. The brain believed death was seconds away. No scars were left, but the psychological impact was deep and long-lasting. Sleep deprivation pushed detainees to the edge of mental collapse. Some prisoners were kept awake for more than 180 hours. Bright lights, constant surveillance, physical restraints, and loud noise prevented even a few seconds of rest. After days, reality became distorted. After a week, hallucinations began. After that, a person's mind could break completely. Stress positions forced detainees to stand or remain in painful poses for long stretches of time. Swelling, joint pain, and muscle spasms set in. Some fainted, others vomited. Many simply endured the agony, knowing that collapsing could result in punishment or harsher treatment. Cold cell exposure weaponized temperature. Prisoners were stripped, soaked with cold water, and placed in near-freezing rooms. Shivering turned to numbness. Numbness turned to danger. And danger, in at least one case, became fatal. Sensory overload bombarded detainees with flashing lights, loud music, disturbing sounds, and overwhelming odors. Songs played endlessly on repeat. Lights shone directly into eyes for hours. The goal was total disorientation, making it impossible to think clearly, let alone resist. Solitary confinement removed every trace of human contact. Detainees sat in darkness, sometimes for weeks. No voices, no faces, no communication. Just silence, isolation, and the slow unraveling of the mind. Physical strikes known as slap and grab techniques were designed to create pain and shock without leaving permanent injuries. A sudden yank of the shirt, a loud slap to the face, a heavy strike to the abdomen. These tactics were not random acts of aggression. They were calculated maneuvers meant to intimidate, frighten, and destabilize. While U.S. officials defended these methods as essential for urgent intelligence gathering, critics around the world described them with one word: torture. Years after the existence of the black sites became public, additional declassified reports revealed something even more disturbing. Several detainees had been subjected to what the agency labeled rectal feeding and rectal hydration. Officially, these were described as medical procedures. But medical professionals, human rights groups, and legal experts widely condemned them as abusive, unnecessary, and humiliating. One high-profile detainee nearly died during a waterboarding session. He became completely unresponsive, with water filling his mouth as bubbles rose from his lips. The interrogators stopped the procedure only when they realized he might not survive. Perhaps even more alarming was the revelation that the Kabul black site was overseen by a junior CIA officer with almost no experience. Investigators later described the facility simply as a dungeon. Senior officials within the agency reportedly had little understanding of the day-to-day operations happening inside. Human rights organizations, former detainees, and even some U.S. government insiders argued that these methods rarely produced reliable intelligence. Under extreme pain or fear, detainees often said anything they believed interrogators wanted to hear, regardless of truth. As a result, false leads multiplied, and genuine information became more difficult to distinguish. Despite the suffering reported by survivors, there were few consequences. Only one civil lawsuit was ever brought against the psychologists who helped develop the program. The case ended in a settlement with no apology and no admission of wrongdoing from either the individuals or the U.S. government. Years later, debates about the CIA interrogation program still continue. Supporters insist the techniques prevented attacks and saved lives. Critics counter that the methods broke international law, violated human rights, and damaged America's moral authority worldwide. But beyond all the political arguments, one unsettling truth remains. The public only knows the techniques and stories that were declassified or leaked. The most secretive operations, the darkest corners of the program, and the full extent of what happened inside undisclosed black sites around the world remain hidden. Behind the sealed walls, behind the locked doors, behind the layers of classification that may never be lifted. And so the question lingers, heavier than ever. If these are the techniques we know about, what else might still be hidden in the classified shadows?